The Spinoff Podcast Network.
Are you making the most of your KiwiSaver investment? Generate is an award-winning KiwiSaver provider with a track record of strong long-term performance. Making a smart decision now could add tens of thousands of dollars by the time you reach retirement. Book a no-obligation chat with a Generate KiwiSaver advisor today at generatekiwisaver.co.nz/get-advice. A copy of the product disclosure statement is available at generatekiwisaver.co.nz. The issuer of the scheme is Generate Investment Management Limited, and of course, past performance does not guarantee future returns.
I'm Toby Manhire, and this is Juggernaut, the story of the Fourth Labour government. A podcast in 6 parts.
Doesn't give my opponents much time to run up to an election, does it?
This nation is at risk.
What do you think you're up to now, you perverted little liar?
I could smell the uranium on it as you lean towards it.
Most radical overhaul in the history of New Zealand's administration.
Juggernaut, the story of the Fourth Labour government. Made with the support of New Zealand On Air. Listen now on the Spinoff or wherever you get your podcasts. Kia ora tātou, this is Toby Manhire with another episode of your friendly local politics podcast, Gone by Lunchtime. What you're about to hear is part of the Gone by Lunchtime Megapod, a 12-hour epic event recorded on September 20 at Spinoff HQ. Enjoy. Haere mai, welcome back to the Spinoff Gone by Lunchtime Election 2023 Megapod. My name is Toby Manhire, and this is the second of 12 hours of wholesome and friendly pod conversation. We're going to talk in the first part of this hour about the debate some more, just really solve it, give our verdict, all that sort of stuff. And in the second part of the hour, we've got Michael Wood, Labour MP for Mount Roskill, coming in. First up, Mad, Anna and Duncan, why don't you introduce yourselves, because I don't know what your job titles are. It's really hard to keep up.
All right, I can go first.
Please.
I'm Madeleine Chapman. I'm the editor of the Spinoff, and I have the exact same size head as Ben Thomas, apparently.
Oh, wow.
Because I put these on and they fit perfectly, which is quite rare. I've got a huge head.
I'm Anna Rawhiti-Connell. I'm editor of the Bulletin and head of audience for the Spinoff, and I'm here repping Beach Haven, the Otara of North Shore.
All right.
Damn, I didn't think of anything funny. I'm Duncan Greive. My job title is founder, but we tried some other ones, but none of them fit, and this just allows me to do a kind of blancmange of different goulash of different jobs.
Should we do these the stock questions first? Are you guys ready for that? We'll do turnout first. Do you have a prediction, Mad, of turnout for the 2023 election? It's being held on October 14th.
I missed you saying what the previous ones were because I was frantically editing a piece.
Let me remind you, it's 74.2 was 2011, 2014 was 77.9, 2017 79.8, and 2020 82.2. But this isn't like one of those, maths problems where you have to work out what the next one is sequentially. Maybe it is.
I think 77 flat.
77 flat, thank you. Anna?
I'm going to go 79.
79, thank you. Neither of you want decimal points. There is a box of chocolate fish.
79.8.
Okay.
So not peanut slabs, because that really blows the budget if you swap chocolate fish for peanut slabs.
Okay.
Like
Have we got
Anna
budget
asked.
for chocolate fish?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Chocolate fish.
Okay.
Do you want a decimal point? You're happy with 77?
No, 77 flat.
Good. Duncan?
Are you doing this all day, like with everyone?
Yeah.
Because I thought I could just do that classic thing of you take the bottom and then you own all of the possibilities below that. But given that there'll be a lot more.
I'm asking you now.
Yeah, no, but there's obviously more to come. So on that basis, I'm going to go 73.8.
Okay, 73.8%. Mad, your political TV show, if you had one that you could take to a desert island?
Since it's got a lot of seasons, probably Veep.
Veep, yeah, good shout. Anna?
I'm Designated Survivor. It's really bad.
What's that?
It's with Kiefer Sutherland, and he's like the last congressman alive after Congress blows up or something, and he has to be the president.
Okay,
yeah,
good shout, I like that. Out of left field, Duncan?
Yeah, that made me think of White House Down, which has got a similar kind of vibe there. I've actually seen all of that series of movies, but that's unfortunately not a TV show. So I'm going to nominate the Thick of It, embarrassingly.
Okay, that's fine. Now, last one on these before we get into the crunchy stuff. Mojo. There's been a lot of talk about Mojo in this campaign. We've talked about Mojo a lot in the office, haven't we?
We have.
Yeah, there's been a lot of Mojo chat. And Christopher Luxon has argued that New Zealand's lost its mojo, and so he's going to look for it and find some of it. We want to kind of get a gauge on what the mojo is across the motu, as they say, and particularly our guests. Mad, your mojo level from 0, all gone, all lost, to 10, abundant.
Since the definition of mojo seems to be quite not nailed down, so I'll just go with my own personal definition in my head. I'm gonna be real optimistic and say 8.
I love that.
Yeah, spread those heads out on the mojo meter. Otherwise they're going to be crowded down the bottom.
Anna Rawhiti-Connell.
I've had about 6 cups of coffee this morning, so I'm on a solid 11.5.
Wow! Did you get your coffee from?
I did from
Mojo.
Oh. I missed that non-promotional plug opportunity. Sorry.
Shocker. 11.5. Wow. We're going to need a bigger chart.
Charts.
It'll come down real quick.
Okay. Yeah. We'll ask you at the end, Duncan.
Yeah, I've actually had I bought these off-brand Arepa sort of tablets, and I put them in an Arepa jar. So I'm.
Can you explain what Arepa is, since you're doing the promo?
It's a New Zealand kind of. Well, no, because these aren't actually their tablets. These are a cheaper knockoff version, but they contain the same active ingredient. So if any of you guys want to increase your mojo with some L-theanine nootropic, live on pod, Toby, you're going to need it. Take a couple.
I'm getting some bad flashback to you holding out a jar of pills towards me.
It's censored. So my mojo is currently 10, because we're on a Megapod right now. Yes.
Wow.
This is the most thrilled I've been with the Spinoff in years.
Duncan has been pacing the office with adrenaline.
Oh my God, our heads are on the screen.
Yeah.
I didn't realise that.
The mojo
wow.
meter.
You've been downgraded to an 8.
I've also been downgraded.
It's like 11.5.
The jury had a discussion. Decided to. Where were you all watching the debate? Where did you watch it, Matt?
I watched it at my sister's house with a crying baby in the background.
Yeah, newborn, really newborn,
very newborn.
Yeah.
So I got a little bit distracted, but so there was just a lot of noise happening, which actually seemed quite.
Is the baby called Chris?
The baby is not called Chris. Thank God.
Did you get a chance to catch some of the debate, or was it
mostly? Yeah. We had to catch up a little bit, and then the TVNZ stream stopped about a minute out, so then we got back on, so we missed about 30 seconds in there at the end, which I'm sure was probably just absolute gold. But yeah.
Any moments stick out for you? I mean, were there any? You're, of course, the the New Zealand Commander-in-Chief on memes. Were there? I mean, there weren't any Sotolofa moments, right?
No.
But was there anything that kind of approached that or came close? Anything that made you?
There was. I feel like if you're really desperate, which I often am, you could find something. There's a good sort of queer template of Chris Luxon saying it. We took too long to come out. That was a good line, by his meaning come out of lockdown, basically.
You can check out Mad Chapman's Instagram stories if you want to see a deployment of that.
There was, things just being like everything's broken, fitting the mojo of the country, basically. But no, there's nothing, and I don't think they will. They're both a bit too polished to throw out a husband as Samoan.
We might need to rely on the minor leaders or the power brokers or whatever you want to call it, debates for some more of those kind of characterful.
Yeah, I think they will probably have too many, but but I reckon the deputies. If the deputies debated that, I reckon there'll be something in there.
Okay. Anna, where did you watch?
I watched it at my house, and my dogs watched it for a little bit with me, and my husband ignored it by and large.
Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
What did the dogs have any thoughts?
One of them just looks perpetually grumpy, which I feel like was quite a good kind of frozen facial expression for the duration. And the other one we like to pretend is a David Seymour fan. I mean, he may actually be, but that's just one of the ways I'm coping with the election season, anthropomorphising my dogs.
And Duncan, where were you for the debate?
You know where I was, Toby. I was right alongside you in the bowels of TVNZ. We're surrounded by journalists, where I feel most at home.
Is that what was wrong with the audience?
Yeah, it was the low energy. Well, they I don't know intentionally, but certainly there was a bunch of seats reserved for media, and they were all kind of quite square in the eye line of the camera. I've of course, like a normal person, went home and watched the debate again, and you got Jason Walls and Joe Moyer, very prominent,
Beautiful couple.
Beautiful couple, and Steve Braunius, who wrote about himself sort of falling asleep for the Herald, and you really do. He does give off that energy, and he's well lit in the frame.
Yeah,
right behind Jessica Mackay's
truly his dream position to be in the. Yeah, he wrote in the Herald about there being a charisma-free room, and. Yeah. The other thing they did before the debate...
Very funny to talk about that in a room that you're in. But that's what I thought.
But as far as the audience was concerned, the other thing they did was that the floor manager at the start said how many people here are from TVNZ, and I think about 80% of the
balance
people
of the
who
room.
weren't other media put their hands up. And my assumption is that that's because of Angry Fence Man, general state of things, that you need to be really careful. You can't put a call out through any mechanism that is remotely public touching, because you know that then you will have to deal with unexpected, uninvited visitors. And they had quite strict security. I've never encountered that before for a TV event.
Yeah, we had like airport style.
We did. We got
Were you frisked?
No. Wandered. Yeah.
Was there a warm-up act? Like a comedian or something?
No, the one like there is a sort of X Factor or something.
Or SNL or something.
Could have done with that.
I once misdescribed that role as a fluffer and got on the podcast.
Similar but different.
I got told that was not correct. You live and learn. There wasn't that enthusiasm in the room, and it's a tricky call, right? Like I think sometimes these debates, the press one, which is 2,000 people, I think they're having again this year, and again, Jesus Christ, I hope they don't get ruined by people standing up and shouting in their seats, but you get some raucous engagement. I remember some years in that one where Jerry Brownlee was having a tough time, and John Key got some stick for that, and then the other way around, and it definitely adds something. It becomes a kind of extra character in the drama of the debate.
Well, I just wonder whether the sort of low energy kind of verdict that's been delivered by most media this morning is, it's a weird environment, right? It's a TV studio and it's being mediated by a moderator, but it just felt very flat, and I just wondered whether there wasn't a lot to feed off in the room.
Yeah, and it's kind of hard to tell when you go and watch those things in a studio, because they've been coached. Everyone involved. This is a TV exercise. The audience are only useful insofar as they feed into the TV exercise. Nothing else matters. What goes into the eyes and the brain of the people sitting in those seats couldn't be more irrelevant. And I think that they were careful, maybe Chris Hipkins especially, I mentioned this in the last hour, not to use their outside voices. Like you need to be able to connect through that camera to the lounges of the country, yada yada yada. And if you go parliamentary debate rhetoric, and start hollering, then people are just going to go, eh. And I think probably there had been conversations with Chris Hipkins beforehand, which is like everyone is saying you have to do a king hit, you have to come in there, and everyone is deploying every available sports metaphor to talk about how you need to leave Luxon on the canvas, such as your position. However, that brings with it the risk of swinging and missing and making an absolute egg of yourself, right?
I mean, there's on the spinoff.co.nz right now, there is a nice wrap-up of every single sports analogy used in the post-debate analysis.
Good.
Which when that finished, when they zoomed out, and I was like, oh, they're in front of people too. Like, it was just silent. And were you given like instruction on clapping or not clapping, because debates is quite common. You know, if someone says something good, people clap, or somebody might go ooh or something, but it was just nothing.
Yeah.
We were given instructions, and I wonder if, with hindsight, maybe they over-instructed us. Like it was a sort of clap when I clap. If something's really funny, which luckily that didn't happen, there was no danger of that breaking out, you can laugh. But it was a little bit like, it was very kind of, be chill, don't become a participant in the debate. Yeah. It was interesting being in the room and then watching it back. Like even though like it felt relatively even tempered in the room, right? Like compared to what they can be like. But on TV, I think the crosstalk feels a lot more combative than it sort of than it kind of read on location. And you know, like I think that, you know, one thing that a lot of people have pointed out, which I totally buy, is, you know, this is this kind of purple election. The two parties that are most closely together, maybe arguably, except in Greens and Te Pāti Māori, are Labour and National, and they are sort of gently performing a merger in some respects. And there just wasn't, you know, so the product differentiation wasn't there to make the thing crackle. So even if you were kind of partisan, where there wasn't going to be a moment where you could kind of really leap on it.
It was very different, though, from, was it Collins and Ardern at the last election, which definitely felt like they were kind of more of a separated unit. I also am not sure about that desk, you know, the shared desk.
The desk's no good.
I thought it looked like a Yui Boom speaker.
Yeah, I thought it looked like it had been
like one of those ones you hold in your hand if you're a giant.
Yeah.
Well, it's just kind of weird for them to be, you know, I get that they have to face the front, but I was kind of keeping track, and it took a long time for Hipkins to literally even just look at Chris Luxon, because he's used to obviously looking at cameras and stuff. I did also laugh a lot at the end when they finish and Hipkins is grinning down the barrel and Luxon is looking at the wrong camera, and then he goes and like finds it eventually and swivels back.
Are you curious about how business can be better? I'm Simon Pound, and I host Business is Boring, a podcast where I kōrero with some of the most interesting people in entrepreneurship, commerce, and making things happen. Tune in to Business is Boring every Tuesday, brought to you by the Spinoff Podcast Network in partnership with Spark Business Lab.
This is Climate Adaptation.
We are the pōtiki of the taiao.
And the words of those keeping the home fires burning.
It's more than just going along and planting some trees. You got to be able to defend that place to the end of your life.
We have the solutions. We just need to come back to the belief in ourselves as rangatira.
Join me, Nadine Hura, and Ruia Āpirehama, the Kōpapa Korangi Series 2, Ahi Ka. Brought to you by Te Komato o Te Tonga, the Deep South Challenge, out now on the Spinoff Podcast Network or wherever you get your podcasts.
What about some other parts of the debate? It was interesting, I thought, that one of the interesting bits, because there was quite a lot of convergence, convergence and the quick fires and stuff like that, but also on when did you buy your first house? And I think Luxon said 24, and then Hipkins followed up with 24. But then in the ad break, Hipkins said, and I think he was saying this because he didn't want to be, you know, contradicted by somebody in the media or whatever. He said, I think it might have been more. Just trying to do the maths, he said out loud. And he said, I think it might have been 22.
Yeah.
And so...
And he said that sort of around the media, but not sort of to them in a way that kind of gave him plausible deniability.
Sort of fair enough, you know. I mean, but does that speak to you of ordinary...
No, it doesn't. I loved Charlotte Murray Lanning's comment in our wrap-up last night, which the entire flat gasped. And,
right.
Just
shrieked or something.
You can imagine. Late 20s renters gasped.
Well, you know, I pointed this out at the time to the media insider Shane Curry, who was there as well, that they write stories about this on the Herald. Like, young person buys a house is a story trope. Like, it's so rare nowadays that it's newsworthy what they both did. It's amazing.
Maybe we should do this. We should commission those stories. It sounds like it
would be quite funny to
special.
It really does.
I did like Luxon saying, you know, coming out of uni, struggling, stretching to buy a house in Niall, which is like central Wellington. You know, that's not There's not buying out in the cheap suburbs. That's
90899.
Yeah, and it was like, sitting on a box.
Sitting on a box.
I did love Alice Neville's live blogging of the debate. You could tell she was not happy with a lot of the answers that they were giving.
Oh, that's right.
Reviewing them
the scene in the house, TV on a box, sitting on a deck chair. Those were the days.
Too poor for a chair.
Just nothing but a 4-bedroom villa overlooking Appleton Park.
It is quite, amazing actually, because I think I'm about the same age as Chris Hipkins, and I definitely didn't buy a house at 22. Like, I was 42.
Did it feel possible?
Happen? No, not at all.
Because they definitely were a lot cheaper then, but I mean, still not.
It just doesn't cross your mind. Like, what are you doing at 22 when you go, I'm going to buy a house?
I was racking up a student loan buying like Savage Garden CDs, So that's what I was doing.
Well, I mean, he was buying in the hut, I assume, unless it was in Raumati where his parents lived. But I think it might have been. I think it probably was the hut, and I think property prices probably were relatively affordable and hut compared to anyway. 22. I guess he was working in Parliament already at that point, and
I guess so.
That moment when you first get a paycheck and you're like, whoa.
Buy a house.
I mean, I was like, I'm going to buy a roti shanai rather than buy a house. Anything else from the debate that stuck out? Duncan.
I mean, like all of the talk going into it, some of it kind of adroitly placed by National was, Hipkins is, this sort of superhero debater and Luxon, this sort of bumbling fool, and anything less than an absolute toweling is a victory for National. That did seem to actually kind of stick as a framing device, which I think turned out to be quite good. But and so a lot of people,
the framing device and the commentary that followed.
Well, going into it, when you're watching it, that was in your head, and then absolutely in the subsequent commentary. And I think that the fact was that he's shocked with his competence because I think mentally you were preparing for him to sort of stumble and fall and so on. And I was surprised by how effective that was, how hard it was to kind of forget that, and as a result, I think that has flowed through into, I haven't seen I really tried to read every single piece of analysis of this from like the Daily Blog on up, and it's
why.
Well, just I find the Daily Blog.
No, I mean not the Daily. That was fine. I just mean generally. I mean, like, maybe Anna, you should get Duncan to write the Bulletin.
Yeah,
for you.
I mean, he's very welcome.
I'm very narrowly interested in this. Everything else,
All right.
but no, like it's so like you can't find anyone calling it for Hipkins in any kind of substantial way, whereas there's a lot of calling it for Luxon, and that
a lot of
feels
people,
substantial.
Myself included, called it draw, which means draw ergo Luxon. Seemed to be quite. Is that because you read everything also?
I did.
Anna,
I did
for the country's leading morning newsletter, the Bulletin.
The Bulletin. Yes. I mean, I think the Herald, all 5 of the Herald. I'm going to call them adjudicators because that's the correct debate language. They called it for Luxon. I think you and I called it for Luxon. I mean, it's actually like illegal in debating rules to call a draw, like somebody has to win.
That. So it's like American sports. You just keep playing.
Yeah.
That's maybe the debate should have just kept going until one of them sort of collapsed or it was an obvious. Yeah. It's just more overtime.
Sounds like sports should be using debate analogies to describe their matches, not the other way around.
I mean, I have all the language if anyone wants it. I mean, I think it's kind of interesting to call something a draw and then award Luxon the win in the context of the campaign purely based on the fact that everyone vaguely expected him to bottle it. You know?
Well, I mean, this was that David Cunliffe, who was back. David Cunliffe back
and good
and looking still like a cat, like very, very feline. Yeah. I mean, handsome cat,
sitting
David.
in the chair, not dissimilar to how he sat on the log. I will say,
log.
It was the leg up, the one leg up, one leg down.
That image, if you don't remember that was the images on the front page of the Herald after the election in 2014. which is just be seared into your brain if you.
Oh,
if you
that's
watch
when.
that.
Is that after he apologised for being a man, or was that?
That
No,
was,
no,
that
this
was
was
that
after the
campaign,
election.
but it was
Yeah.
after the election itself.
It was up there with sort of hungover-looking Shane Jones the day after the 2020 election at the Duke.
And but the thing that David Cunliffe, the sports metaphor that he chose to use was one of the Rugby World Cup, where Hipkins was the All Blacks, but
Luxon
needed
was
to
France?
pull off. Yeah, Luxon was France going into at this stage and going into it, and therefore you needed a win in order to progress. So,
Because you're
it's
behind in the pool.
So it's but or if you
Thanks,
think of
mate.
it, if you think of it like it being the English Premier League, the greatest.
Oh, no, we're not critiquing it now. We're just doing it.
But sometimes you need. Sometimes if you're at the top of the table, a draw is a win. Oh my God!
I've lost you.
Already,
Lost you.
We're not even an hour and a half into
I need
this.
Callum to write an explainer.
Mad, any other strong moments you thought from either of them particularly? Any moments that you thought they suddenly were going to break through and prove themselves to be statesmen in waiting?
Not really. I did notice Chris Hipkins' huge smile. God loves to smile.
Did you think? I thought Luxon's smile was pretty huge too. He was quite grinny, not as grinny.
Chris Hipkins was,
Okay,
I mean, on
interesting.
TV certainly, a lot of big close-ups of
Okay.
Chris Hipkins
A lot of
grinning.
mojo.
And I think there might be a bit of a nervous thing because it was kind of like almost like a relieved thing at the end of a question when they had like settled down again. But I think as much as I really don't like I don't like watching people argue, so I hate watching debates in general. But I do just think they like each other too much. Like they kept sort of, I respect him on this, and actually we agree, and actually that's a bad question, and we're both going to kind of tell you off for asking about Taiwan and yada yada. And I think if there was just a little bit, kind of like the Judith Jacinda thing, where you go, I don't think you would talk to each other outside of this room in any substantial way. Whereas I feel like they would get along quite well and just go off and have a chat and talk about owning homes and things like that. So maybe a little bit of like sometime between now and the next debate, if there was just a little bit of something that irked the other.
They need to do some psychological work to sort of.
They need a backstory.
Pavlovian association.
Yeah,
where
just,
it's like where you do those drugs where if you smoke it tastes bad. That's they need to do something where they kind of like prod them with a sharp needle and then put a picture of their rival up against them.
I think
people pay a lot of money for this sort of strategic advice.
That they're like both very fresh new rivals. Like this has only been introduced this season.
Yeah.
This kind of Chris v. Chris battle, and because there's kind of a convergence that's almost at the brink of like grand coalition. They don't actually have a rivalry backstory. I mean, I don't know if I believe Hipkins saying he didn't do practice with stand-ins, but I definitely think they need to, set up some like blow-up kind of dolls or something. I don't know. Like they really need to imagine kind of hating on each other.
I know that Luxon did have a stand-in for Hipkins, and whether the idea that Hipkins didn't seems weird.
Seems fanciful. How would you prepare properly without that?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I don't know. I mean, you don't have to role play it, right? You could say I'm just going to do debate prep, and we know. But what I'm curious to know is because I asked Chris Bishop, who's the campaign chair, to tell me who was doing it, and he refused to tell me, which is fair enough. But he said some National Party staffers and people who are helping, which sounded like, so I was like imagining this entire range of different Chris Hipkins, like a police lineup, and one of them will be like super angry Chris Hipkins, and one of them will be very absolutely relentlessly positive
I'm
Chris
sort of
Hipkins,
imagining
and in
like
between, and he has to kind of swap them out, and so that, Chris Luxon is so prepared because he's been spending,
like a John Malkovich
46 hours a day.
Or like a step up to the streets, where people come out and they do like a special little dance in their own style, and they should all be wearing masks. Can we talk quickly about, because I think there's been a lot of coverage and conversation about the two Chris's, but not as much about the actual moderating, or is it adjudicating of the debate?
No, Jessica was the moderator. The adjudicators are the people who decide who won.
Okay, thank you. Good to have an expert on hand. But because, afterwards, Jack Tame, who, I think is widely considered the current heavyweight champ of political interviewers. He made a comment about, and we talked about this as well, Toby, about the the sort of fiscal hole in National's tax plans, about how that you sort of blinked and that went past, even though that has been the dominant talking point of the last 2-3 weeks. And he basically said, I would have pressed them on that, which was interesting given that's a close colleague, and that you sort of felt like it was weird that he didn't get at least one of these debates. What did you all think of?
He's doing the minor leaders debate.
Yeah, but there's something about the hot lights and the big stage with this one. Any thoughts on Jess Mackay's performance?
I feel like I don't, like the whole time I'm watching them, I genuinely don't know how much is political interview and how much is setting up them to debate with each other. I think because they weren't doing as much debating with each other until the second half, basically, it did feel like maybe that's when you have to shift and actually do that for them almost, which she was more, I think, moderating, and then they kind of caught up on doing some of their own, like, defending and attacking. But I also don't particularly like it when you watch a debate and then you're actually just watching somebody be interviewed for like 5 minutes. So
yeah,
I don't know, it's a tricky one.
I mean, and this is probably like a special episode of The Fold or something, but I think it really called into question the actual format.
Is that the Spinoff Media podcast?
That is the Spinoff Media podcast. Like I found myself kind of wondering exactly what the point of it was. I mean, I don't mean to get existential, but from a format point of view...
Mojo's coming down.
Mojo's now at 2.
Drop the Mojo meter or not.
Tame definitely has a different energy, but he's a great interviewer. And what is the purpose of those debates in terms of what we're supposed to be eliciting? Is it just a kind of read of how these leaders would perform under hot lights for an hour and a half? Because
it's really hard, and it's really hard to do because you can conduct two really, really impressive interviews, but that's not the purpose of the exercise, is it? And the other thing to note is that the first ones are always a bit more edgy. Like I can't remember a first one that really, whether it was Hosking, Campbell, or this, that they have this sort of slightly kind of tentative air from all involved, and that seems to be kind of baked in, just natural. I mean, the other thing, though, in terms of the general kind of debatology of it, is it's tempting, and maybe I'll do this with the Auckland Central debate soon, just to say, can you talk about housing and then go? If part of it is to test the character, because sometimes what you get with a debate is you get really tough prepared questions, which are not whether or not they're gotcha, they're designed to make it difficult, and then you get shouting back and forth and interjection from each other. What you never get is how you would like your politics to be. You would like constructive discourse to work, which is like this. I mean, this is kind of this is perfect, right? No, but how do people get in a room and do a bit more like they have a conversation? Okay, well, I agree with you on that, but I would say that actually we need to say, well, let me challenge you on that. Why not that?
Well, I think because it's that sort of stated preferences versus revealed preferences thing where people say that they want to watch documentaries and then end up watching Too Hot to Handle. I think that is like an aspirational quality but people would find it boring and turn off the TV. But I think that I guess the tension of that is that there's a sort of a sparky kind of interjecting thing that we you quite like, and then there's a delicate and quite fine line where it tips over into you're just kind of being boorish and interrupting a lot. And I don't know, like again, watching it felt like Luxon tipped over that line more frequently than it did in the room, which was that's the sort of that interesting thing where you just it feels so different on TV versus was live, and he wouldn't necessarily know that until afterwards.
Thank you all very much for your insights and your jokes and just the charm, just the water is flowing. Thanks so much. We're going to be back shortly with Michael Wood on the Spinoff Election 2023 Megapod. Thanks for listening. There's plenty more where this came from on your Gone By Lunchtime feed. Thanks to Jane, Te Aihe and Samuel. and the rest of the team at the Spinoff for making the Megapod happen.
Talofa lava. I'm Madeleine Chapman, editor at The Spinoff. If you have the means, consider supporting our high-quality journalism by becoming a Spinoff member. Sign up now at thespinoff.co.nz/donate.
Kia ora e te iwi, Te Aihe Butler here, podcast manager at The Spinoff. If you enjoy listening to our podcasts, consider supporting our mahi by signing up to become a Spinoff member at thespinoff.co.nz/donate. The Spinoff Podcast Network.